Hi guys, Creative Katie here. Welcome to my channel. Today I have a mixed media tutorial. I've made this into a journal cover, but you can make it into an art journal page or a canvas. Here's a snapshot of the front and the back. So I took the cover and I put on 3 or 4 layers of dollar store tissue paper. I glue it on with my matte medium, let it dry, glue it on, keep going, and get all those lovely wrinkles. Then I use the chicken wire reverse stencil and use modeling paste on the front cover. And I'm sorry that I lost that footage, but you've seen me do things like that. I've also gessoed the entire cover after I take it off of the coils. Now, for the background here, I am using a combination of Prussian blue and Naples yellow. And what you get when you mix those two is magic. You get this vintage, muted teal color that is to die for. And it's exactly the right color for what I want. I'm putting both of those colors on the makeup sponge, dipping in the Naples yellow, dipping in the Prussian blue, and blending it on the substrate. In my case, a journal cover. I'm not trying to get a perfect mix. I love all the variations that you get, and I'm working it into the nooks and the crannies of all that luscious texture that was created by using the layers of tissue paper. When you're putting the tissue paper on, be mindful that you give it enough dry time in between. Now I'm just rubbing the makeup sponge with the Prussian blue on the top, trying to highlight some of that wonderful, wonderful texture. And here, just a little sneak peek if you're doing a journal cover. I'm doing this on the back just to get the blending worked out before I do the cover. Now I have these clocks from Stamperia rice paper, and I've just cut them up. And I'm just deciding which ones to use. And I'm going to use 2 of the brown ones. I like how the gold in it plays with the Naples yellow that's in the background. And I know that I'm going to be adding some gold later on. And yes, I will be colorizing the inside flaps of the covers as well. When I do my journal covers, I do all 4 sides. Some are more simpler than others, with the cover, of course, having the most texture and most work that goes into it. I want to add a little bit of script. I don't want this to be forward. I want it just subtle in the background, and I'm just using my black archival ink. And I'm going right over top. I'm not trying to get a perfect stamp because, again, this is going to be very, very subtle in the background. And this is a Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous stamp. I think it's called Reflections, but it'll be in the description box below. When I put the tissue paper on, it has a shinier side, slightly shinier side, and a duller side. I try to remember to put the duller side at the top. It just takes medium better. If your tissue paper is very slick, you may want to gesso before you add paint, just to increase your chances of getting the effects that you want. So here are the inside covers. Oh, and I guess I'm not doing that. Again, mixing that Prussian blue and Naples yellow. Now, I'm not sure what blues or yellows will work to get that same combination, so I highly recommend getting those specific colors because of the pigments that are in them and you can see what you're getting. But, experiment with your yellows and blues. You might have to add a little bit of white to it. I know that the Naples yellow has a lot of white in it that makes it very muted. And the Prussian blue is in the teal family. It leans towards the green. And of course, we know that yellow and blue make green. So now the Prussian blue that I have here is the Deco Art Americana Premium Paint. You can get it in Liquitex Basics, although the only place I've seen that is an art store or through Amazon. And I'll put a link to it in the description box. So the Stamperia rice paper clocks I cut out. I think there were 6 of them on the page. And I definitely will be using the other ones for other projects. Now, this is a journal cover. It's the journal that I'm putting it in has lined. It's kind of a notebook. I think this would make a great gift as a retirement gift, as a memory keeper. You'll see why when you see the quote that I end up using. And here I'm just rubbing the dark blue, the Prussian blue, over top of that wonderful modeling paste texture. Just to bring out, I want to bring out that texture. I want it very forward. This cover sat on my desk or off to the side for probably over a month and a half after I had put the tissue paper on, which is why I've lost the footage, because I wasn't sure how I wanted, what kind of color I wanted in the background. And then all of a sudden today it was like, oh yeah, I could go this way. And you get inspired. So sometimes if you have a project, just let it sit and think about it. It'll come to you. Work on something else, and then out of the blue, you'll get it. I do take a little bit of black as well and go over top, just ever so slightly on the honeycomb or, the chicken wire reversed. And now I'm doing the inside covers. And here I'm just blending it. I find that by the time I finish painting this with the inside covers, I inevitably get paint on it, which is why I finished them off. And it's imperfect. There's a little bit of gesso, there's a little bit of paint on there. And so I paint it with some getting varieties of tones and colors that kind of hides any imperfections that may be on that page. And then I'm going to be doing some stenciling on there. And I'm choosing to use that chicken wire reverse stencils from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'll put a link in the description box below. And I just want a little bit. I'm mirroring the patterning that I have on the cover and other parts of the journal cover. So everything works and reads together. And I didn't do it all over. I like the effect of having it just a little bit here and there. I'm just patching up a spot. There was some gesso and it just took the paint a little bit differently. So I'm just modeling it up, loving it. It's very dreamy. So that would be a background that you could have for Under the Sea just as it is. So there's another idea for an art journal page that you could do. And just to bling this up, make it a little bit more special, I'm just going to splatter some gold. Now this is Liquitex Basics gold paint. I like it better than the Artist Loft. and I just thin it down with water and I keep it in this plastic container. Over time, it gets a little bit thicker, so every once in a while I spray more water on it in it and mix it up. But I do a lot of splattering, and it's just nice to have it primarily pre-mixed. But it's nothing special. And you can see a shot there, I am not a neat crafter. By the time I'm done a project, my room looks like it had exploded. So there's my Liquitex Basics Gold, and I'm using this Ranger blending foam, and I have it with some Velcro on a wooden spool, and I'm just ever so lightly rubbing the gold on the high points of the texture. On the back, it's just the texture that was created from tissue paper. But this journal, when you hold it, because it has the texture from the tissue paper, from the modeling paste, it just feels so good. It just feels yummy. Gold rarely shows up well in photos. Loving it. Now I have a sentiment which I printed off on copy paper, and you can see it there. And I printed and I play with the sizing. Here I'm going in with a little bit of the gold on the high areas as well. And it's very, very light. And I will add layer upon layer upon layer to build color. But don't glob the paint on your blending foam or, makeup sponge. Apply a little at a time and build it up. This cover just makes me so happy. So you can see how the colors of these clocks really plays well with the gold embellishments that I have in the background. So my saying says we all have a time machine. Dreams take us forward, memories take us back. And so that's why this could be a retirement journal, this could be a memory keeper, it could be a bucket list journal. So now that I know what size sentiment, because I've played with it, I'm going to print it out on tissue paper. Again, this is just garden variety dollar store tissue paper, and I've cut it to fit inside my paper, and I am taping it on, stretching out, smoothing it out as I go. Take time to do this. And again, I am putting the matte side, the less shiny side, up. I want to print on that side. So I'm just stretching it out and doing that. Now, when you're printing on tissue paper, I'm going to put this tissue paper up because that's what works in my printer. You're going to have to experiment and see how your printer works. And as always, you make the judgment call about whether you want to put it in. There is a chance that it will jam. Is a chance that it will crinkle, that you have to do it more than once. It's an imperfect system. And then I'm just cutting it out now. Usually I print it out twice just in case it wrinkles. Now I took it off that backing paper. In order to cut it easier, I would leave it on there and use that paper as support because this gets a little flimsy, as you can see. Now the tissue paper is going to go fairly translucent, so you're going to be able to see the coloring from the background shine through. The text is not going to be so bright and in your face. It's going to be very muted. Now, if you don't have tissue paper, you're choosing not to use tissue paper, you can print it out on the white copy paper or parchment paper. If you do it on white, you can then colorize it. You could paint it with a wash of gold, a little bit of that teal. Now I'm using my Liquitex Basics Fluid Matte Medium, and I'm applying that liberally. The more you put in, the more translucent it will be. And you need a light touch here. And when the tissue paper gets wet, it becomes very fragile. And right here, I end up ripping the ah off the top. We all have ah. And so I end up having to go back and reprint it. And then you'll see me gluing it down. Same thing with the rice paper. It doesn't go as translucent as the tissue paper, but you can still pick out some of that teal color comes through and it makes it just perfect. So if you end up making a mess and it doesn't work, as long as it's wet, you can take it off. Even if it has dried before you catch it, if you re-wet it, can sometimes be able to pull it off and redo it. Now, if you don't have the Stamperia rice paper, you can look for printables and you can use any kind of focal image here as well. This rice paper I did get from Ninny's Napkins, and there is a link in my description box. She has lots of the Stamperia rice papers. And there I am now redoing and reapplying what ripped off. This saying is in one of my sentiment packs. I believe it's probably in sentiment pack number 1, 2, or 3. I'm not sure. Different fonts than what I've used here, but it is in one of the packs if you're liking the sayings. Now I'm using some black and I am using the floating acrylic technique to shade around these clocks. I just want to bring them out a little bit. They are the focal image. I think this would look nice. While I love, love, love the teal in the background, I think a burgundy background would also work really well with this arrangement. The burgundy and gold would look terrific. I haven't looked on Amazon yet to see if they have any of the notebooks that I use on for this. I will look and I will give a link if I can find anything that um, that I think will work for this purpose if you're looking to source something out. And I want to do some shading to the chicken wire reverse stenciling. And I just want to bring out that texture and make it show up a little bit more. Now I could have used just straight up Prussian blue, but I'm using the black. Another alternative there would be to use Payne's Gray, which is a blue gray. And I add a little bit, then I come back, let it dry, come back and add more. It's easy to build, harder to take off. In my last journal cover video, someone had asked, what do I do to varnish this? I use Minwax polyacrylic varnish that I get from a hardware store. I'll see if it's in Amazon and I'll give a link so you can see what it looks like. Um, Either in a satin finish or in gloss. And I give it, 2 or 3 coats. So the cover is very, very durable. And it feels just awesome. I believe I also shade around the outside to frame the cover and just keep making it look like it's old and vintage, worn, handled over the years, right? Liking the look, I'm doing it on all the covers, the front and the back and the side and the inside flaps. Making sure that I get the edges. When you create, not every project turns out exactly how you like it, but this one exceeded my expectations. It just really came together. After months of it sitting there, it came together. Outlining the sentiment with my Secura glaze, which is glossy and dimensional, just adds another finishing touch to it. And this is going to be close to the end of this video. Give me a thumbs up, share this video with your creative friends, give this a try. You can cut out clocks from a magazine and use them. If you don't have the rice paper. But the rice paper, because you can get that green through it, you won't be able to get that effect on anything else. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, get creative.